We're using Solver in Excel to solve the Win Big Gambling Club problem. This is an example of the use of linear programming to solve a marketing mix problem. We're trying to maximize the audience that we reach with our advertising, given that we have constraints on how many ads we can run and how much money we have to spend. We have everything set up, so we're ready to run the problem. We're going to Data, Solver. The first thing we have to tell it is what it is that we're trying to maximize or minimize. And that's in the green cell in F6. We're trying to maximize the audience that we reach. So we're going to keep the default, which is maximize, F6. The cells that we can change are the cells that we are solving for. So that's going to be the yellow area, the B5 through E5. We want to change how many TV spots, how many newspaper ads, how many radio ads. Now we're going to set our constraints. When we set the problem up, we kept all of the less than constraints together and then the greater than constraint. What this allows us to do is enter these constraints as a block. Instead of adding each of these constraints individually, we can do all of the less than constraints as one. We're going to click Add, and we're going to highlight F8 through F13. The reason we're only going down to 13 is we only want to write this constraint for the less than constraints. F8 through F13 has to be less than or equal to, make sure you leave that first cell reference as F8 through F13. You have to click in the constraint cell, and you want to set that constraint to be H8 through H13. We're going to click Add, and now we're going to add the greater than constraint. We want F14 to be greater than or equal to H14. If we had another constraint to add, we could click Add, but because this is our last constraint, I'm just going to hit OK. We're ready to solve it, so I'm clicking Solve, and OK. Let's take a look at our output. We're told that to maximize the audience, we could reach 72,185.86 people if we run 1.97 TV spots, 5 newspaper ads, 25 primetime radio spots, and -14 afternoon radio spots. That in effect, what we've solved for here is that we'll get paid $380 for every afternoon radio spot that we don't run. And obviously that's not feasible, and I wanted to run it this way on purpose. What we're going to do is rerun it correctly. I'm going to delete what's in that yellow area. The reason that we're going to do that is because if there is anything filled in as an initial value, Solver will start trying to solve the program from that point on. So anytime you have to rerun a linear programming problem, you want to make sure that you delete the value so it is starting from scratch. Let's go back to Data Solver. This time I want to click off Make the Unconstrained Variables Non-Negative. That we can't have negative TV spots or negative radio ads. Let's solve it again. Tell it OK. So now you'll notice we're not running any afternoon spots instead of a negative number. We're reaching 67,240 people. We do have something odd still. Can we run 1.97 TV spots or 6.21 primetime radio spots? That really you can't. You can't have a fractional value as an answer. So what I want to do is rerun this again, but this time I'm going to give that as a constraint. I'm going to say the answers, these values, have to be whole numbers. Again, we're going to delete the values in yellow before we rerun because we want Solver to start from scratch in solving the problem. We're going into Data, we're going into Solver, and we're adding a new constraint. The constraint is going to be based upon these yellow values, based upon those values that we're solving for. We're going to say that we want them to be integer, INT. What that means is a fractional value is not an option. It has to be a whole value. This is the last constraint we have, so I'm just going to hit OK to go back, and now we're going to solve it. You'll notice that the 1.97 TV spots has now been rounded up to a 2. Newspaper ads is 5. Primetime radio spots is 6. Afternoon radio spots are 0. You'll notice that we're spending $7,965 out of our $8,000 budget. You'll notice that we are less than for all of the constraints, that we are having 6 radio ads, which meets the minimum that we had set for 5.